And welcome back to the Fantasy Football Profits. As you can see, I'm finally here after a few videos being gone. We're so excited to have you guys here today. Just got back from college for the summer, so now I'll be here involved every week. We got some big things happening that we're going to talk about, but first I'll just say that I'm just going to be here for the intro. I just got back and didn't have time to do the research for this video, so it's going to be just your research. However, I'll be here for the intro to talk about some big things that are happening. First of all, one of the big things is that we're going to be running a contest for a free hat. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we'll give it away. It's pretty simple. Just be subscribed and comment down below if you want the hat. And then basically it's as simple as that. The only thing is that we're not giving it away till we hit 1,000 subscribers. We're about 30 away, so that should happen pretty quick. But so that's one thing. We'll keep talking about that more in future videos. The other thing is that I'm working on updating the website, so that should be ready soon in about a week or so, which we're really excited for. If you were with us last year, you know that our website didn't work on the phone very well last year at all, so this year it should work great and it should work just as fine, so we're really excited about that. We know that's huge. Most people are checking out our stuff on their phones and everything, so that's going to be hopefully a lot better for you guys to access and a lot easier. And then the other thing is starting in our next video, we're going to have another guy joining us named Ryan, so we're excited about that too. But of course, the thing we're most excited about is fantasy football, so we can just get right into it and start talking about running backs for next year.
Yeah, I think the video we're going to release is going to be this Saturday. Look for it. It's going to be our boom or bust video, so that'll be the one that you're going to be on, back on board with us. So, yeah, so I think that's it.
I think that's it.
So this is going to be our early running backs ranking video. Now this will change often as the year approaches, more information comes in. We're going to adjust these rankings according to the information we get from preseasons, from camps, etc., injuries, recoveries, as we hear how rookies respond. And so this is the first one that we have, one of many running back ranking videos. Now, for me, I'm a big running back guy. I'm going to be the first time. I've been this way for many, many years. I've been successful in this. I think running backs is really where you make your money. Now, a few years ago, especially at the start of 2016, a lot of the experts out there were saying the philosophy should be kind of the no running back philosophy. And the idea was take your running backs later, don't worry about them, load up on wide receivers. And we said this is really backwards logic based on the law of supply and demand. The less quality running backs out there should really push up the value and the importance of finding one early. Now, the reason why I feel that this is an important position to get, this is the hardest position to make up for if you have injuries or bad performance or your guy doesn't work out well in the first round, whoever that turns out to be. As if you look at the other positions like quarterback, wide receivers, typically there's a lot of undrafted talent out there. And so for me, it's really about getting quality running backs early and often, even loading up my bench with a lot of quality running backs. This is where you really want to nail it if you can. And so let's get into our rankings video. Well, first of all, before we get into this, we'll talk about our tier 1 running backs. And the first 5 running backs out there, you can't do wrong. All these guys are going to be solid this year. Tier 1 running backs, I would say this. The first 5, you look Gurley all the way down to Hunt. These are the guys who should be taken ahead of any players in the draft. The only player that you would even consider taking ahead of any of these guys would be Antonio Brown if you're drafting in a full-point PPR league. That's it. If you're in a full-point PPR league, then that might change it a little bit. But otherwise, these are the 5 guys. The first 5 out there, Gurley, Bell, Elliott, Johnson, and Hunt should be taken before anybody else. That's what I believe. That's what I hold to. My first running back out there is Todd Gurley. Now, I really struggle whether or not it should be Gurley or Le'Veon Bell. First of all, you can't go wrong with either one of these guys. But ultimately, I put Todd Gurley slightly ahead of Bell for one reason, and that really comes down to touchdowns. He's just been, in his first 3 years in the red zone, his ability to find the end zone, he's just been more productive there. He's got 35 touchdowns the first 3 years in the league. Now, if you're in a PPR league, then I would probably flip it around. I'd probably put Bell number 1. I think Bell's a little bit more productive in terms of receiving and in the passing game there. So you take a look at Todd Gurley. He's only 24 years old. He's a big physical back at 227 pounds. Last year, he had 1,305 rushing yards, yards per carry of 4.7. He also had 64 receptions for 788 yards. So he ended up with over 200 combined yards last year. Like I mentioned, he's 6'1", 227. He's big, he's physical, he's got great hands, he's a complete package. He has no weaknesses in his game. If there's been one concern, it would be his second year in the league. Second year in the league, he struggled quite a bit, but I think we can really chalk that up to Jeff Fisher and Jared Goff being a rookie quarterback. This guy is solid. He's running with great weapons this year. There's no reason why he can't continue that same production that he had last year. So Todd Gurley is my number 1 guy there. After that, to me, it's Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell's another guy who's a pretty big physical back, 225, is only 26 years old, which is kind of odd. Feels like he's been in the league forever, but he's still pretty young. Now, last year, he had a good year, although he did see a dip in his production. His yards per carry was 4.0. That was the lowest since his rookie year. So is there cause for concern there? Well, I'd say no. Here's why his production dipped last year. It's very simple. He missed all of the preseason. He held out. And the reason why he held out is he wanted a long-term deal. He didn't get it from the team. They gave him a franchise tag. So he held out until just a couple days prior to the start of the season. So he really went into game one with no carries. He was out of shape. And it really took him 3 games to kind of full hit stride to get back into game playing shape. First 2 games of the year, his yard per carry were 3.2. So that really kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. When he is healthy and he's on the field, he's probably the most reliable back out there in the league. Now, if you look at last year, before that, 3 previous years when he was healthy and he came into preseason, got his reps, got his touches, came out there. He had yards per carry 4.9, 4.7, 4.9. He's another guy who has no weaknesses in his game. This is a guy that's gonna, as long as he's out there, he's gonna produce. He's gonna be productive. So Le'Veon Bell's my number 2 guy. Now, number 3, I got Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel's another guy, big physical, only 23 years old, 28 pounds. His numbers were down last year. Some might wonder why I have him 3rd overall. Aren't there safer, better options out there than Ezekiel Elliott, number 3? Well, here for me is what it comes down to is Ezekiel Elliott benefits from the best offensive line in football. Dallas has the best O-line in football. Now, he did see a fall off in production last year, undoubtedly. One, he didn't play a full schedule. He missed 6 games because of a suspension. But I think last year, it was more than the fact his overall numbers were hurt, his yards per carry were down, but I think his production, the dip in production, really came by the fact that suspension last year, the back and forth, is it on, is it off? From week to week, you didn't know if he was going to play. I don't know how many weeks he said he's going to be suspended. He'll begin his 6 weeks suspension this week, but then the last second, something would come in from a judge. He was able to play, and I think it made it very difficult for him to prepare physically and mentally for each game. Now that's out of the way, so he's going to enter the whole year ready to go play, barring any unforeseen things. Now, if you look at the last 6 games before he began his suspension and serve it, his last 6 games, he was averaging 118 rushing yards per game, so he was really starting to hit his stride at that point. He's got good hands in the passing game. He's actually bigger and more physical than Bell and Gurley. He doesn't really have any holes in his games. If I have any concerns for Elliott at this point, it would be a lack of weapons around him. They don't have any quality wide receivers. Right now with Des Bryant gone, their best wide receivers, Allen Hurns. So I think you could see a lot of 8-man boxes. And the other concern is, can he stay out of trouble? Obviously, the first couple years in the league, there's a lot of baggage that he had. But as of late, things have been pretty quiet for him right now, so that bodes well. If everything goes well, he should have another good year. I like Ezekiel Elliott. He's a very talented, explosive back out there. Number 4 for me is David Johnson. David Johnson, another one. If you're in a PPR league, I would put David Johnson ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. David Johnson, 26 years old, another big physical back at 224 pounds. Now, I put him number 4 for a lot of reasons. One, he's big and he's quality, but this guy has a nose for the end zone. We talk about guys finding that red zone. Well, in 2015 and 2016, he had 12 touchdowns, followed that up with 20 touchdowns. In the first 2 years, in a total of 33 games, he's had 32 touchdowns. So this guy's finding the end zone quite a bit. He's got great hands. In fact, his hands are only behind Le'Veon Bell and Christian McCaffrey in terms of his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. He had 80 catches in 2016. He had 6 catches in his first game last year before he hurt his wrist and then missing the rest of the year, which, by the way, everything sounds like his wrist is totally healed. He's recovered. He should be good to go. He should be 100% at the start of the season. If I have any concerns for him at this point, David Johnson, well, I would say his yards per carry aren't great. In his career yards per carry 4.3. That's not terrible. It's not spectacular. And another concern I have for him is the quarterback situation right now is murky. Either going with a rookie quarterback or Sam Bradford, who can't stay healthy. With that said, he's another running back out there who's a complete running back. He can do all things. He runs the ball well. He finds the end zone. He's got great hands. If you get David Johnson out there, you're going to be just fine this year. Number 5 for me, and he qualifies still as what I would call a tier 1 running back, and that's Kareem Hunt. What a nice surprise he was. A lot of steal for owners last year, unless you're somebody who had Spencer Ware. Sorry about that. This guy really had a great year, and he's now their bell cow. He's a guy that they're going to rely upon. He's a starting running back. He doesn't really have any competition going into the year. Kareem Hunt is really involved in all aspects of that offense. Last year he ran the rushing title as a rookie. He also had 11 TDs and 53 catches. He's another back that really has no glaring weaknesses in his game. He can do all things. He's a really true 3-down back at this point. If there's any weakness in his game, it would be the fact that he's not a big back. He's not small, but he's not real big and physical like the 3 previous guys that we had mentioned. When I look at his back, I think about him and Alvin Kamara are very similar. The reason why I put Hunt ahead of Kamara is Kamara's going to lose carries to Ingram, and so that hurts his value a little bit. It bumps him down, and that puts Hunt above him for me. So I got Kareem Hunt number 5. So before we get to number 6, when I look at number 6, when I go from Hunt to Gordon, kind of move into what I would call our tier 2 running backs. So when I look at a tier 2 running back at this point, these are backs that are very solid, very reliable. Barring any unforeseen circumstances like an injury, you can depend upon these guys to be very good, productive players. So number 6 for me is Melvin Gordon. So the last 2 years in the league, Melvin Gordon has averaged 1,051 yards rushing per season. He's averaged 12 touchdowns and 50 catches per year, and that has totaled out to be an average of 447 receiving yards. He's very solid. He has no competition for his job, which, let's be honest, in fantasy football with the running back by committee out there that are just so devastating to a lot of fantasy overs. Right now, he is the #1 guy there, so that's kind of half the battle. Now, a concern I have for him is that his production really comes from volume. Okay. If you look at the 3 years he's been in the league, he's never had yards per carry of over 4. He's had 3.5 and 3.9 for 2 years. Now, if you look at 4.0 in terms of like the yards per carry, that's kind of the football's version of the Mendoza line. But every once in a while, a running back can keep it underneath there and still have a productive career. Although it's rare it can happen. I think about Eddie George was very similar. In 9 seasons, only twice did he have a yards per carry of over 4. In his career, yards per carry were 3.6. Jerome Bettis is very similar that way. Jerome Bettis' has yards per carry for his career 3.9. Now, when you look at Gordon, he's not as big or physical as Bettis or Eddie George. With that said, though, the one thing that he brings to the table that they didn't bring is he's great in the passing game. He's got very good hands. He's very effective in the passing game. He's a very safe and solid pick. Can't ignore the statistics of Melvin Gordon at this point. Number 7 is Devonta Freeman for me. Now, you look at the last 3 years. In the last 3 years, a total of 45 games played. He's got a total of 35 TDs. He's another guy that's got the nose for the end zone. In 2015, he had 14 TDs. In 2016, he had 13. He's averaged 54 catches the last 3 years, so he's very involved in the passing game. Now, the concerns I have for him at this point, statistics have been great. When he's on the field, he's been very productive as his size. He's not a very big back. He's only 206 pounds. So if you look at other running backs that are similar in terms of size, they typically have durability issues. Now, at this point, he hasn't missed a ton of time, but last year he's banged up quite a bit. Is that a precursor of things to come because he is a smaller back? That's hard to say. Another concern I have for him is Coleman. Coleman's a backup who's very good. And it's nice to have a good backup like Tevin Coleman because, one, when he is injured or banged up like that, the Falcons are not pressed to get Freeman back into action. We saw that last year. They limited his carries. In the last 2 years, actually, Coleman has vultured at 19 touchdowns. So those are some of the concerns I have. With that said, it's impossible to ignore the production that Devonta Freeman has had when he's been on the field. Once again, 35 touchdowns in 3 years, averaging 54 catches per season. So this guy is very solid. He is my number 7 guy out there. Number 8 for me is Alvin Kamara. So we take a look at Alvin Kamara out there. He was electric last season. I think he surprised a lot of people. He ended with a yards per carry of 6.1, 13 TDs. He had 81 catches in combined yards of over 1,500. Is really amazing about this if you consider what is really amazing about his statistics. One, he had to share a lot of his stats with Ingram, but he was really in the first few games, he was third on the depth chart. He was behind Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram. It wasn't until they traded away Adrian Peterson that Kamara really took off. He has tier 1 talent. This guy has all the talent in the world to be top 5. What really hurts his value, and the reason why he is, say, number 8 for me, is Ingram. Ingram's going to get a lot of carries, and so he's got a very, very high ceiling. But right now, he kind of isn't that dreaded running back by committee in terms of him and Ingram. So number 9, I've got Barkley there. So look at Barkley for me. Barkley got drafted by the New York Giants. He is a stud. There's really no deficiencies in his game. He's a true 3-down back. He'll be drafted in many fantasy leagues in the second round, but I say this in some of the bigger leagues, 12-team leagues or bigger, he's going to move into the first round there. Typically, I play close to the vest with my when I draft. I typically get guys that have been around the league for a while, a little more proven, but I have no issues at all drafting Barkley. If I have an opportunity, I'll take him in a heartbeat. He couldn't have landed in a better spot. He landed in a perfect position to be successful. This is his job to lose. The Giants have a very much improved offensive line. They spent a lot of money in the offseason improving that offensive line. And that was before they had drafted Will Hernandez in the second round. He has a lot of great weapons around him. Odell Beckham, Shepard. You look at Evan Ingram. And so he's not going to see a lot of 8-man boxes. A season of 1,200 yards and 10 TDs is nothing for him. I love this guy, so I got Barkley there. He's not only his back's young, he's only 21 years old. He weighs 230 pounds. Once again, there's no deficiencies in his game. He should have a successful year there. He should have a great career there. I like Barkley. Number 10 for me is Dalvin Cook. So Dalvin was explosive before getting injured last year towards ACL and missing the final 12 games of the year. He finished with a yards per carry of 4.8. He has good hands in the passing game. He showed good instincts in the passing game. In fact, if you look at 3 of the first 4 games that he played before getting injury, his yards per carry during those 3 of the first 4 games are 5.6. He was 3rd in the league in rushing before his injury in week 4. Concerns I have for Dalvin Cook, once again, he can do it all. He's a very effective runner. He's got great hands in the passing game. He's still young. Concerns I have are injuries. Coming out of college, the one knock on him was that he wasn't very durable. And so that's one concern to have. Now going in, that sounds like he's had a great offseason. He's recovered fully from ACL surgery. And it sounds like he's ready to go by the OTAs. Now I expect the Vikings are going to probably bring him back slowly, make sure he's 100%. But everything points to him having a big year. So what I would say, though, I like Dalvin Cook. He's far too talented to pass on. With that said, because of his durability in college, in fact, he hurt himself last year, is if you draft Dalvin Cook, I'd probably make sure that you have a very good third running back on your bench just in case, just as insurance policy to him. So number 11 on that list is Leonard Fournette. Former first-round pick, 4th overall, had a very good rookie year last year. He finished with 10 touchdowns, over 1,000 rushing yards in just 13 games. So he had a pretty good year there. He also had a great postseason against the Giants. He had one game, he had 109 yards and 3 TDs. Last year, he had 6 games with over 100 yards rushing each game. Concern I had last year is at times he disappeared. He'd have some great games, huge games, like I said, 6 times last year, over 100 rushing yards. But he had stretches of inconsistencies, times where he kind of disappeared. Do I have a concern for him going this year? Well, I think he's very talented. He's big. He's physical. Should have a good year. The one concern I have for him is really Blake Bortles. Until you have more effective quarterback play, I think a lot of teams, when they game plan for the Jags, they're going to focus on loading up the box, shutting down the run, and forcing Blake Bortles to beat them at the pass. But he's far too talented to let slip. This guy has a high ceiling, so I've got Leonard Fournette, my number 11 guy. Number 12, I got Jordan Howard. Well, Jordan Howard's still just 23 years old, and in the first 2 years in the league, he's recorded 2,435 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns in 2 seasons. That actually puts him ahead of Gale Sanders and Walter Payton on the Bears. Those are some big names to be ahead of on that list. And I think what's even more amazing about the yards that he's got in the first 2 years rushing is we consider how bad that offense has been. The Bears' offense last 2 years haven't been good. Teams have loaded the box versus him quite often, yet he's still broken over 1,000 yards twice. Concerns I have for Jordan Howard at this point. One, not a whole lot. He's a big physical back, 224 pounds. He's a one-cut running back who runs very effectively and very powerfully. Concern I have is Mitch Trubisky's development. He needs to continue to improve. And also, Jordan Howard's not great in the passing game. Unfortunately, last 2 years, he led running back in drop passes with 14. So one concern is Mitch Trubisky and his inability to catch the ball in the backfield. He struggles in that area. So if you're in a PPR league, you definitely need to bump this guy down a couple more spots. After that, for me, number 13, I got Jay Ajayi. So you look at Jay Ajayi last year. Well, how do we begin to break down that season? A lot of people felt like he disappointed. I guess statistically he probably did if you look at his overall numbers. But Jay really thrived in Philadelphia once he got traded. He's only 24 years old. Many considered last year to be a bust. But I think that was more of a product of him being traded mid-season, okay, than it was poor play per se. Before being traded, he had 2 games for Miami. He looked pretty good. He had 2 100-yard games. He had a game where he had 130 yards rushing, and he had 122. And that was on a brutal Miami offense with Jay Cutler that really struggled. After the trade, going from Miami to Philadelphia, his yards per carry jumped from 3.4 to 5.8, so he really took off there. His overall totals weren't great. There's a few factors for that. One, when he got traded to Philadelphia had some other good running backs. So they didn't need to rush him in there. He didn't have to get all the carries. He didn't need to carry the ball 25 carries a game to carry that offense. Also, it took a while for him to learn the playbook there. Rumors were that he struggled with pass protection, so it took him a while. In the first 4 weeks in Philadelphia, all of his carries were in single digits. After that, the next 5 consecutive weeks, he had double-digit carries. That trend should continue now that LeGarrette Blount is gone. This is a guy, though, back in 2016, he had 3 games where he had over 200 yards rushing in a game. Only 3 other running backs have ever done that. Tiki Barber, Earl Cameron, O.J. Simpson. Those are some big names once again. Tiki Barber, Earl Campbell, and O.J. Simpson. So he's in very, very good company there. Jay's got solid hands. And here's another big bonus, I think, for him going into this year is they're going to get Carson Wentz back. So that's going to ensure that defenses, when they game plan, if I'm game planning to stop that team, I'm really going to focus on shutting down Carson Wentz in that passing game. I think that's going to open up a lot of big lanes for him. I think it's very conceivable. It's easy to imagine him ending up with over 1,600 combined yards and 10 to 12 TDs this year. I like Jay Ajayi at number 13. So number 14 for me there is I got Mark Ingram. Well, he had a disappointing first 3 years in the league, but since then he's really developed into a very good running back. His yards per carry are excellent. His yardage totals have been solid. He's good in the passing game, averaging 51 catches per season the last 3 years. He's had double-digit touchdowns the last 2 years. So why is he not drafted higher? Why is he not ranked higher? Well, the problem with it really comes down to the fact that he's sharing the backfield with Alvin Kamara. Last year, those two had a historic season. Between the two of them, they had a phenomenal year, really carried that team. Between the two of them, they had 25 touchdowns, 139 catches, and combined yardage totals of 3,094. I think it's going to be very difficult for that offense to duplicate those numbers in back-to-back years, especially now that defenses will have a full offseason, a lot of game film to look at and how to shut those guys down. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a little dip in the overall production there. And I also think that Alvin Kamara, because he's young and very talented, is going to carve out a bigger role for himself. That's going to diminish Ingram's stats a little bit. With that said, he's a very talented running back. Really the best thing that could happen to him, and this isn't going to happen, is either traded or something were to happen to Alvin Kamara. But I like Mark Ingram. You can't ignore his stats. I got him as number 14. So number 15 there, I got LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy is a great back who's had a great career. The bottom line, the reason why I have him ranked where I do right now, number 15 and not higher, is because he's 30 years old at this point. He's not young anymore. And at the age of 30, that's typically when running backs start to have a quick decline in their numbers. In fact, I think we already saw a little bit last year. He had a yards per carry at 4.0. That's a career worst for him last year. I think another thing that hurts him going into this year, doesn't have a lot of weapons around him. So right now, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I'm playing Buffalo, I'm going to focus on shutting down LaShawn McCoy. You got Peterman and A.J. McCarron at quarterback. They're not proven. It doesn't have a lot of great wide receivers there. They're pretty weak. So it makes it easy for defenses to focus on him. But LaShawn McCoy is far too talented to ignore. He's got 441 career catches and 6 seasons at over 1,000 yards of rushing, including last year. 3 times this guy's had double-digit TDs. So LaShawn McCoy, 30's not young, probably still got another year to him where he can be productive. Number 16 for me is Alec Collins. Now, for a lot of you, you're going to probably say he's ranked too high, but I'll take my chances with this guy. I feel really good about the year he's going to have. I think he's the real deal. I don't think he's a fluke. I don't think he's a one-year wonder. In fact, I think Alec Collins has the makings of a running back one. If you look at his rookie year with Seattle, he looked really good. In fact, it was kind of surprising that Seattle didn't bring him back, especially if you look at all the issues they had at running back there. Now, last year's yards per carry were excellent at 4.6, and he got used more and more in the passing game as the year went on. In fact, if you take a look at it, all of his catches happened from week 9 after. If you take on his average catches per game from week 9 after, and you project that over 16 games, that turns out to be about 41 catches per season. All 6 of his touchdowns came in the last 7 games of the year. And if you look at it, I think it really bodes well that the Ravens didn't draft a running back in the draft. So that tells me that they think very highly of Alec Collins. They feel like he can be their guy. He had an excellent career in college for Arkansas. He left after his junior year. He's slipping pretty far down in many mock drafts. So I have him ranked number 16, but in a lot of your drafts, he actually fall farther. And you can actually steal this guy later on as you build your bench, you build your team. So I think this guy is going to slip, and he's a great steal. So before we get into number 17 picks here, we're going to move into what we call our tier 3 running backs at this point. A lot of these guys will end up starters, but they have a few question marks. Maybe coming back from an injury or competition on the depth chart with other running backs. So we're going to follow these guys closely. We're going to follow their progress. We're going to update you as the year goes on. We'll put out more running back videos. We'll have our website. You'll see us adjust our rankings probably weekly. So number 17 for me is Christian McCaffrey. Now, in the first 8 games last year, Christian McCaffrey really struggled with the run. If you look at it, his yards per carry in the first 8 games were 2.39. That was brutal. He really struggled to run the ball. After that, though, things really began to take off for him. After that, the final 8 games, his yards per carry were 4.68, so he did a lot better. Now, the one concern I do have is I do see him in his career struggling in the running game a little bit. And the reason why is he's not a big guy. He's smaller. He's 5'11", 205. But this guy's a stud in the passing game. His rookie year had 80 catches for 651 yards, so that balances out. So he's a guy, what I would say is if you're in a PPR league, this guy is top 10. If you're in a PPR league, Christian McCaffrey is a top 10 running back. If you're in a standard league, he drops down quite a bit. One thing a lot of people felt like Jonathan Stewart gone now really kind of bodes well for him, but yesterday the Panthers signed C.J. Anderson. I think C.J. Anderson is going to take on a very, very typical role, not very typical, but very similar role to Jonathan Stewart's role in terms of carries, touchdowns, things like that. So I think that's how you're going to see this kind of play out there. Number 18 is Kenyon Drake. I like this guy a lot. I really do. I would have had him ranked a little bit higher. One concern was the draft. They drafted Kalen Balaj, and so I think that there's some possibility there that he gets some competition. Now, after Jay Ajayi left, during the last 5 weeks, Kenyon Drake really took off. He exploded during those 5 weeks for 444 rushing yards, and he had a very healthy yards per carry of 4.88. He also during that same stretch had 17 catches in those games. This former Alabama back has all the tools and decent size to be running back one. After he got traded, Jay Ajayi, for me, there's a lot of question marks. Like, why did Miami depart with him? He seemed like he was a good young running back. Well, then after Drake kind of took off, it seemed to make a little more sense. Okay, maybe they saw something. Maybe they saw an opportunity there. They could get rid of him, and this guy, their future here. I think this guy's got a lot of potential. I think he could be an RB1. One concern I have, like I mentioned previously, is they drafted Kalen Balaj. He's got a lot of serious skills. He's a big physical back at 230 pounds, so that's slightly concerning for me in terms of Drake's ability here. We're going to watch the situation closely, and we're going to give you updates. But right now, I got Drake as my number 18 running back. Number 19 is Joe Mixon. So going into last year's draft, a lot of people felt like Joe Mixon was talented as any back in the draft. And in fact, a lot of people felt like he should be taken in the first round. The reason why he dropped so far in the draft is because of the domestic violence of his past, and that affected his draft position. Now, his yards per carry last year were not very good. They were 3.5, but he did show signs of improvement. In fact, his last 4 games, his yards per carry ballooned to 5.01. He was very effective in the passing game at 30 catches, so I think this is the year that Joe Mixon really takes off. He's a nice back, good size, 228 pounds, only 22 years old. I think Joe Mixon will become a solid running back this year. Number 20 for me is Jerick McKinnon. So the 49ers signed former Vikings running back Jerick McKinnon to a 4-year, $30 million deal. That's a pretty big deal for a guy that's never had the RB1 role at this point. Now, he filled in very nicely for Dalvin Cook last year after his injury. All things point to him being the starter for San Francisco at this point. Now, the strength of his game is really the passing game. He had 51 catches last year, and his style of play fits Shanahan's style. And it's very similar to Devontae Freeman. If you look at the two running backs, McKinnon and Freeman, they're very similar in terms of their size and how they play the game. If you look at Freeman, he really thrived with Shanahan as the offensive coordinator there. So that's a concern, not a concern, but that's actually something that we feel good about McKinnon at this point. Concerns for Jerick McKinnon. Question I have to ask, can he handle the bigger role? He's not a big physical back. He's a little bit bigger than Matt Breida, but not terribly bigger. And so that's the one concern there is how we handle the extra carries in that offense. Number 21 there, I've got Marlon Mack. So he looked good in the passing game last year at times, but he did have moments where he did struggle in the run, although he had moments where he was explosive and showed that he had a home run ability. Getting Andrew Luck back this year should help quite a bit. I'm sure that's going to change things for that whole offense. In fact, it's going to help it significantly. He has some rookie competition on there, but as of right now, Marlon Mack appears to be slotted into that running back one role position for them there. He's 210 pounds, 22 years old. Like I said, right now he seems to be their guy. We'll have to watch and see how that plays itself out. Number 22, I got Darius Geis. So I got drafted by the Washington Redskins. Well, let's take a look at the Redskins backfield right now. You got Kelly on there. Kelly's not great. He's really a one-trick pony. You got Samaje Perine. Last year, Perine really underwhelmed his rookie year. He had 2 good games. Besides that, he really struggled. He finished with a yards per carry of 3.4. Look at Geis. Geis is the youngest running back right now on this list. No, going back to college, he didn't have great numbers in the passing game. So how's that going to affect him? It really didn't matter because it doesn't matter who the running back is going to be. Chris Thompson's really going to take that role and he's going to do it very effectively. So it doesn't matter. He didn't have great hands. Chris Thompson is their guy there. If you look at his running style, compares a lot to Arian Foster. Now, he has the type of talent that could really move him up into, should have been taken in the first round. In fact, going into the draft this year, a lot of people felt like he had first round talent, but the reason why he slipped as far as he did is off the field issues. With that said, he's got all the talent that if he can keep his head on straight, this is a guy that can become the starting running back for Washington and be a steal for a lot of you fantasy owners out there. So he's a guy we definitely need to watch, but I believe by year's end, as long as this guy can keep his head on straight, he will be the starting running back for the Washington Redskins. Number 23, I got Isaiah Crowell. Isaiah Crowell, another guy, good size, 225, 25 years old, still pretty young. Mark my words. I know a lot of people are caught up on Paul. They think he's going to have a huge year this year. Paul is going to serve as the third down change of pace back. Mark my words. You look at Isaiah Crowell. He had a healthy yards per carry of 4.2 for the Browns, for really some really bad Browns teams. He's shown he's capable in the passing game. He's still young at 25. He's been effective at some points. I think that he's going to really take off. I think he's going to have a very good year playing for the Jets this year. He will be the running back one ahead of Paul. Paul, once again, mark my words, will be the third down back, change of pace back on that team. And the starting running back will be Isaiah Crowell there. Number 24, we got Rashad Penny. And so he's going to have some competition. He got drafted by Seattle. I think that Chris Carson is going to be his competition there. In fact, if you look at their depth chart right now, they got Chris Carson listed as the number one guy. Although that's not uncommon. A lot of teams will do that. They make their rookie come in, kind of earn his place, move up the depth chart. But if you look at Chris Carson last year, the coach loved him. He looked really good until he broke his leg. With that said, he'll be given every opportunity to win the game, or to win the starting job there. Penny's a big back with deceptive burst and speed. He broke out in 2017. He ended up having 2,248 rushing yards and 23 TDs. He really has the tools to be a number one back. He's become the first reliable back that Seattle's had since Marshawn Lynch had those big years. Number 25, I got Dion Lewis. So Dion's not a big back there. He's only 195 pounds. And so with that sort of size, this guy's not going to get over 200 carries. What we typically see, what we project is going to get about 150 to 175 carries, used highly in the passing game. We look at Henry's going to get the goal line carries, and that's going to lower Lewis's value a little bit. But a repeat of his 2017 numbers are very likely. So what he did last year for New England is what we see him doing this year for Tennessee. Now, last year wasn't the first year they had a big year. If you look at it back in 2015, he was having a really, really good year before he had season-ending injuries. So we got Dion Lewis right there at the number 25 spot. Number 26, we got Nick Chubb. Now, the Browns side, Carlos Hyde. But that was before the draft, and Hyde really disappointed last year. He finished with the yards per carry 3.9, along with the fact that he didn't really fit Shanahan's style of play, so the 49ers let him go. Here's another situation that we really need to monitor this closely between Chubb and between Hyde to see kind of how that sorts itself out. But we really think the future of this backfield is going to end up Chubb's going to be the starting running back. He's going to win that spot. You look at how is this going to play out. Well, you look in the team there for the Browns. Duke Johnson will be the third down back and get a majority of the targets, but Chubb projects kind of as a two-down type back who can wear defenses down. He has very good size, balance, strength, and vision. He's in a great situation to succeed, especially what I like about him in this situation. He's not going to see a lot of eight-man boxes because they got a lot of talent now. You got Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, you got Josh Gordon, Coleman there, and so that's going to free up a lot of running lanes for him. What I would say, though, is whether you like Hyde or whether you like Chubb, you need to handcuff these two together, definitely, until we're certain how this plays itself out. But when it's all said and done, we think at the end of the year, Nick Chubb is going to be the starting back over Carlos Hyde. Number 27, we got Sony and Michel. Now, my first reaction when the Patriots drafted this guy was, yes, he's going to have a huge year. But then I want to kind of put my emotions aside, begin to evaluate a little bit, look at this kind of objectively, and then I begin to think about Bill Belichick. So then right away when I began to think about Bill Belichick, I was kind of hesitant to commit to him being a huge back this year. Bill Belichick is just really hesitant. If you look at his career and how he operates with his back, Bill Belichick is really hesitant to commit to one running back. You also got to remember that he's playing for a coach who has high expectations. He's one to miss, block, or fumble away from the bench. So I think he's a very nice pick. I think he's got a very high ceiling, but I think you need to temper your expectations. Don't overreact. My initial reaction, I think a lot of people are going to draft him in the third round of their league. With that said, I'm more apt to take him in the fourth or fifth round. The Patriots love to spread the ball around, and Bill Belichick rarely has a bell cow. They love to use multiple running backs. In fact, you have to go all the way back to Corey Dillon before you can find one running back who had a really huge year there. Now, some would say, what about LeGarrette Blount a couple years ago, had a big year? But if you look at LeGarrette Blount's year, you had a lot of touchdowns, but that was based on the quality of the offense. He got in the end zone or the red zone a lot, but his overall yardage totals that year weren't great. So it's a concern. Look at Sony. He's explosive. He hits the holes hard. He shows quickness. Doesn't have great hands, but he has decent hands. Doesn't matter if he has good hands anyways, because you look at White and Rex, they're going to majority of the targets there. So it's who I have at number 27. Number 28, I got Foreman, the running back of Houston. So last year he was really starting to look good and get comfortable in the NFL until he had an Achilles injury. In fact, the game that he got hurt in, he was having a huge game. That game before hurting his Achilles, he had 10 carries for 65 yards, 2 TDs. He also had 3 catches for 15 yards. Really looked like he was moving into that starting role. He's a big physical back at 6 foot 235 pounds. If you watch games last year, if you watch any of the Texans, here's what you noticed. He looked far and away more explosive and more powerful and more effective than Lamar Miller. He just simply did. Now, the downside of this situation here and why you need to monitor this and why we're going to monitor this is that Texans aren't just going to give up on Lamar Miller because Lamar Miller is still relatively young. Also, he's recovering from an injury, so we'll have to see, is he 100%? Will he be ready for the start of the season? So some of the question marks that we have. One thing that does bode well for him, though, is getting Watson back at quarterback should open things up for him. So my only concern for him at this point, really, when it comes down to it, is how is he recovered from his Achilles injury? Is he 100%? Will be ready to go at the beginning of the season? So that moves me to number 29. Number 29, I got Lamar Miller, and I've got him back-to-back on there because we have to see the way this sorts out. There's some question marks, though I think that a lot of these question marks will take care of themselves by the time we hit into August at that point before the season starts. You look at Lamar Miller, he's a steady decline since 2014. His yards per carry that year were 5.1, looked great. Fell to 4.5 to 4.0, and last year had a career worst 3.7 yards per carry, looked brutal. He looked slow last year. He lacked explosiveness. With that said, he's still young. He's only 27 years old. So he's still young. They're going to get Watson back at quarterback. And Foreman may not be fully recovered from his injury. That could allow him to rebound this year. So you got to keep an eye on this guy. When he played for Miami, there was a lot of concerns that he couldn't handle increased carries and a heavy workload. It would appear to be that case because as he's moved from Miami to Houston, when he's had more carries each year, his numbers actually dropped as far as yards per carry and his effectiveness there. So it seems that Miami were onto something there. They might be right. But he's definitely a guy that you can't give up on. You have to keep an eye on. Number 30 is Carlos Hyde. Still not too old, only 27, 235 yards, decent size. But last year he declined. What concern I have with Carlos Hyde is San Francisco had no real interest in bringing this guy back. And to me, that speaks volumes. So, and as we said previously with Chubb, we predict he's going to win that job. But until we know 100% for certain, until we get more information in, we got to keep Carlos Hyde. We got him about number 30. We haven't slotted there. So I just want to go through the list and talk about some other running backs out there and kind of how we see that situation right now, where we kind of figure that out. I want to look at the first one. I want to look at the Green Bay Packers running back situation. So who's going to win that spot there? Now, I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me on this one. That's all right. We'll see when it's all said and done who's right, right? So the guy that I like in that three there, you got Ty Montgomery, Jamal Williams, and Aaron Jones. The guy that I think is going to win that spot is Aaron Jones. I think he's a much better running back. In fact, last year he's far and away a better pure running back than the other guys. If you look at Williams and Montgomery, the yards per carry are 3.6 and 3.8. If you look at Aaron Jones, he had a robust 5.5 yards per carry. Now, he saw limited starts because he finally moved in that starting role, and then he ended up getting injured. But during some of those starts that he had when he was a starter, he had one game where he had 19 carries, 125 yards. He had another game of 17 carries, 131 yards. During that same stretch, he had 3 touchdowns in 4 games. For a lot of you, he's a major sleeper. I think when it's all said and done, I see him beating out the other 2 running backs there. So here's how I think it's going to start out. I think that he'll end up beating out Jamal Williams for the starting spot. I think Ty Montgomery is going to be used more often in the passing game, especially the departure of Jordy Nelson. So that's kind of how I see that playing out. A lot of people like Jamal Williams going into this year, but I want to say this. He had one game last year, just one time. Jamal Williams had a yards per carry of over 4. All the other games, his yards per carry were below 4. He wasn't effective. He was most effective in the passing game. And many people forgot that last year he actually lost his starting job, was bumped down the depth chart by Aaron Jones before Jones got injured. It was a Jones injury that moved him back into that starting role, but otherwise he was very ineffective last year. Another thing, Ty Montgomery, let's take a look at last year. I know one Packer fan got mad at us because we said, beginning of the year, we said, watch out, we don't think Ty Montgomery can be durable in this role. We think when it's all said and done, he's not going to be able to continue having that starting spot. A Packer fan got really mad at us, but when it's all said and done, we were right. This guy just couldn't handle that durability. And what we see is Ty Montgomery has definitely got skills. He's got great hands. With the departure of Jordy Nelson, we see him used more often in passing situations. Yes, he'll get his carries, but this guy's not going to get 150 carries. It's just not going to happen. He might get 50, 75 carries at the most, but most used mostly in the passing game. Let's look at Oakland. Look at Marshawn Lynch. Well, Marshawn Lynch is 32 years old. He also has Washington Richard, and now they signed Doug Martin on that team. So you look at his competition, the fact that there's 4 other running backs there. In fact, he's 32 years old. This is a guy that's well past his prime. Now, there's a few guys that after the age of 30 can be effective. Frank Gore did it for a while. I think Marshawn Lynch can have an effective and decent year. He actually got stronger as the year went on last year. Started the year, looked pretty bad, but got stronger. With that said, his best years are past him. He's not very effective. If you're in a PPR league, he has no value. He has some value in standard leagues, but I think once again he's going to continue to plummet. Another guy out there is Giovanni Bernard. Giovanni Bernard shined last year with Joe Mixon out. So if Mixon struggles, a door could open for Bernard at this point. If you draft Mixon, I would say it wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and handcuff him to Bernard or put Bernard on your bench. Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray last year wasn't getting many carries before the Dalvin Cook injury. Now after the injury, he filled in. He did all right, but his yards per carry 3.9 wasn't great. At this point, Latavius Murray is sitting nothing more than really kind of a backup at this point, barring a Cook injury. We talked about Paul earlier, running back of the Jets. I know a lot of you people are going to be excited about him this year. Mark my words, he's going to follow that role as a third down back, change of pace. Isaiah Crowell is going to become the starting back. Here's the other thing with Powell. He's not young. He's 29, so he's not the future of this team. They're rebuilding. LeGarrette Blount went to Detroit last year, so how's LeGarrette Blount? Well, I think LeGarrette Blount will be the starting running back there. He won't be out in third downs, obviously. He has a limited ceiling. He's not young anymore at 31, and he's what I call a one-trick pony. He's great. He's very big. He's very physical. He'll get some goal line carries, but he's got a very limited ceiling. Another guy out there, Derrick Henry. Kind of feel bad for this guy a little bit. They signed Dion Lewis, and that just devalued Henry. It sent his stock plummeting as far as I'm concerned. Now, last year, the Titans seemed hesitant for whatever reason to give Henry the ball. Henry last year looked like a much more effective running back than DeMarco Murray. He just was. And so all year long, I remember thinking, why aren't you giving this guy more carries? Why do you keep giving DeMarco Murray these carries? He's really struggling. And then in the offseason, they go ahead and pick up Lewis. So it just doesn't bode well for him at this point. So got to push his value. Tevin Coleman, another guy out there. Let's look at Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman is a great backup, and you can start him in a few spot starts, bye weeks, or if Freeman were to get injured. With that said, Freeman's a starter there. Tevin Coleman's the backup. He's got limited value. Samaje Perine for Washington. Of course, we got Geis, Kelly Thompson there. He's being squeezed out of playing time. He had 3.4 yards per carry. Didn't look all that great. I don't see a whole lot of hope there. How about Amir Abdullah of Detroit? Well, you got Blunt, Riddick. They drafted Johnson. His days seem to be numbered there. Last year, he had a terrible 3.3 yards per carry. He's not a big back. He's smaller, only 23 pounds. At this point, there's not a lot of value with Abdullah. Got Matt Breida. Look at Matt Breida, San Francisco. Another back. He's 190 pounds. He's another guy that's got home run ability. He's got good hands. But they signed Jerick McKinnon, so I think Jerick's going to be the starter. With his limited size, I think he's got a limited ceiling there. You got Peyton Barber at Tampa Bay. So I think that Barber's going to be given every chance to win the starting job. We look at Jones. Jones has a dynamic running back, the rookie that they drafted. But Jones is a little bit smaller there. So Peyton Barber will be given the opportunity to win that job. Peyton Barber could be a big physical back. I think he could be consistent. I don't think he's great. Let's look at Doug Martin. Doug Martin has really just declined. He's 29 years old. He's had 2 good years, but he's had 4 brutal seasons. He goes to Oakland there, and don't have a lot of confidence that he's going to do a lot to turn his career around there. Got Chris Ivory. At this point, Chris signed with Buffalo, and he's just a backup to LaShawn McCoy at this point, unless there's injuries. He doesn't have a lot of value. You got Corey Clement at Philadelphia. Corey really carved out a nice role last year. Looked good for a rookie. Did a lot of good things there, but you got Jay Ajayi, and so at this point, he's more of a role player. You got Devontae Booker. So a lot of people thought Devontae Booker might be the starting running back for Denver, but they went ahead and drafted rookie Freeman. I think Freeman's going to win that job in Denver at this point, so Booker's used mostly in the passing game. Got Rex Burkhead, had a good year last year. He's got another nice role, but got a lower ceiling. There's just too many mouths to field there for New England. Got Austin Eckler for San Diego. Another guy did pretty good last year. Had a pretty healthy yards per carry of 5.5. Was used quite a bit in the passing game, but that's Gordon's team. He's another one that, unless Gordon gets injured, has a very limited ceiling. Got Rod Smith of Dallas. You know what? Unless Ezekiel Elliott gets suspended or injured, Rod Smith is not going to see a significant amount of time. Guy to keep an eye on is Chris Carson. Looked really good last year for Seattle. Broke his leg. Now, they did draft a rookie this year. A lot of people think he's going to end up winning that job. Penny. But he's going to be given an opportunity to win that job. So I'd keep an eye on Chris Carson. We'll follow that situation closely. Got Rob Kelly of Washington. He's really one-dimensional back. He's big, he's physical. He can't be used in the passing game. And even last year, he struggled to run the ball with 3.1 yards per carry. Got James Conner of Pittsburgh. James Conner, very talented actually, but with Le'Veon Bell there, let's come on, he's not going to see the field too much. Another guy out there, C.J. Anderson, just got signed by the Panthers. I'm surprised it took so long for a team to sign him. He had a decent year last year, over 1,000 yards per carry, 4.1. I think he's going to, that role that Jonathan Stewart had last year, I think you're going to see him move right into that role in terms of his carries, production, etc. Got Ronald Jones, once again, the rookie we talked about. And so I think Ronald Jones is going to have an opportunity to win that spot. He's a little undersized, only 200 pounds. Now, there are some backs that have overcome limited size like Jamal Charles, but they're hard to come by. And so I think even though he's an explosive back, he's got breakaway speed. Size is a concern. And so I think they're going to give Barber an opportunity to win that spot, and I think Jones are going to work him in a little bit there. You got Kerryon Johnson, got drafted by Detroit. LeGarrette Blount's going to be the starting back there, but LeGarrette Blount's 31, so he's getting older. Abdul is not the answer. And so I think that when I look at Johnson, I actually think Johnson's got the gifts and possibilities. I think he could become the starting running back there, but I don't see it this year. I think 2019 is the year that Johnson really steps into that role. You got Freeman, running back at Denver, drafted there. Big physical back, 238 pounds, 22 years old. I think that this is a guy that has an opportunity to become the starting back there. We're going to watch that real closely. Then we went into the final one, and there's just some guys that we were going to talk about what we call kind of PPR only backs. These are backs that have no value in standard leagues, but if you're in a PPR league, especially a full point PPR league, these are some guys that you want to consider that have been very effective in terms of that. The guys that really jump off that list for me, I won't get into all the details, but really Chris Thompson, last year he looked really good. He had yards per carry 4.6, he had 6 TDs, he had 39 catches, 510 yards before he got hurt and was out for the year. The other guy that really kind of stands out on that list to me is Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson had 74 catches last year. He's been very, very effective in the passing game. And so if you're looking just for somebody on your bench, somebody that you can plug in on a bye week or for an injury, and you're in a full point PPR league, those are some of the names that you want to consider there. So thanks for joining us once again. Go ahead, get the word out there, subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe. We're going to have a new website coming out here. We're going to have more effective tools, ways to answer your questions. We're doing start-sit videos. We have always done that. We answer all your questions regarding where you should start, any line of questions you might have. Well, this year we're going to have a more effective process for that to happen. Once again, thank you for joining us at the FFP here. God bless.